Newbie joins boyfriend's new game only to get murdered. Never really posted before, but figured I could share this story. Names edited, obviously. I had never played Dungeons & Dragons before, barely even heard of it until this happened. One day, I had just finished baking some cookies when my now ex-boyfriend told me that some of his friends were coming over so they could host a game of D&D. Me, being curious and wanting to learn more, I asked him about it. He explained it was a role-playing game where you roll dice and interact with the DM's world. With that explanation, I was actually incredibly interested. During this time, I was just role-playing in online forums, and a lot of the people I had been role-playing with hadn't logged on in a while. I also had nothing better to do, so I asked if I could join. My boyfriend said yes, there shouldn't be a problem. There was. After we went to the game shop next door to pick up some dice for me, his friends arrived. In total, there were 4 of us. My boyfriend, myself, the DM, and Mike. Mike was someone we both knew from work, and he was an overall chill guy. The red flag came from the DM. When I got to our table and sat down, the DM just looked me over, then looked at my boyfriend. My boyfriend told him she's never played before and wanted to see what it was like. We're all making new characters anyway, shouldn't be a problem, right? At no point in the exchange did the DM indicate that there was an issue with a new player joining. So we rolled up new sheets. Since I didn't know anything about how anything worked, naturally I was asking questions about what ability scores were or how classes worked. I rolled up a half-elf sorcerer. I don't remember everyone else's races, but Mike was a rogue and my boyfriend was a wizard. And while I was doing this, the DM was talking to Mike and my boyfriend as they were describing their characters in detail. Then, when I finished, I wanted to explain mine, and I got a, "We already spent too much time getting your character ready. Let's just jump into things before we run out of time." I was a bit surprised, but I figured, yeah, we did spend a couple hours, and I did impose myself on their game. Little did I know that was the first of the red flags. We got started, and right away, the DM wanted to get everyone a special item for their character, and he stated the higher the roll, the better the item. Mike went first, rolled decent, and got a dagger. My boyfriend rolled a little higher and got a first level spell scroll. Then came my turn. I rolled my d20, and it was a nat 20. I knew that was really good because Mike was applauding me. The DM, however, didn't seem too happy that I rolled it, and he took a minute to get my item. What I ended up with was a wand of scorching ray, where I could shoot 3 shots of fire at a time. Mike and my boyfriend loved the item and knew it would be useful in fights coming up and showed me where to mark it down on my sheet. However, afterward, things got weird. We had our first encounter. Simple enough, just some goblins. We rolled initiative. I noticed right away that for some reason, the goblins were only going for me because I looked like a valuable target. Which is funny, considering I had never described what my character even looked like or what kind of person she was. But I let it go because the DM was the expert, right? Luckily, the DM rolled so low that it didn't even hit my character's AC. Then came my turn, and I used a wand. I rolled, and all 3 shots hit, one being a crit. I rolled damage and also rolled high. At this point, Mike is just laughing, and my boyfriend tells the DM, "Sorry, she has stupid luck sometimes." And while those 2 were laughing, the DM was not. He looked pissed and extremely frustrated. Whenever I asked a question about how something worked, his responses kept getting snappier at me. A few more moments passed, and Mike and my boyfriend were role-playing together. It was fun to see. Kind of a kinship between brothers, and how Mike's character would do his best to get my boyfriend's characters all the books in the world. I thought this would be my moment to chime in with my character, but just as I opened my mouth, the DM goes, "Does a 25, 21, and a 22 hit?" We all pause, and because we were only level 1, of course that hits all of us. He then rolls damage, and what proceeds to happen is this. He doesn't say out loud what everyone's damage is. He goes over and whispers it to everyone like it's a big secret. Mike gets hit, but all it does is a scratch to his skin. My boyfriend gets hit, and the same thing happens. Then I get hit, and I'm dead. Yep, dead. By a goblin arrow. I would like to say, as someone who's played a lot of D&D in the present, I didn't know about death saves. I just lost my character out of nowhere. Mike and my boyfriend proceeded to take out the goblin, but I was still dead. I'm at the point in a panic, so I ask, is there any way I can come back? To which the DM goes, no, you're dead. The only way you can keep playing is if you make a new character, but we already spent so much time on you that I don't want the rest of the day to be making another character, so we're going to just play, okay? I look to my boyfriend, and he doesn't say a word. Mike just looks awkward in the whole thing. But bless his soul, he said that he fashioned a makeshift carrying device so that he could lay my character's dead body on it and he could bring it with them to see if they could revive me. Spoiler, they didn't. Or rather, the DM didn't want to. And my boyfriend took my wand because it'd be a waste of a good item. But I'll never forget the DM saying, it's probably better in the hands of someone who can use it right. At this point, I feel like shit. I didn't have high confidence in the first place, and I hate conflict, so I didn't call this guy out for being a jerk. In my own apartment. So I left the table and went into our bedroom and played Pokemon. Granted, I still got up and brought them my freshly baked cookies and some drinks. I might have been upset, but even then, I still wanted to be a good host. DM just ignored me whenever I walked by. Still ate the cookies though. After they finished their game, they left, and my boyfriend came to check on me. He also said that it looks like they won't be having any more games here anymore. Turns out the DM canceled everything because he thought it would be a game with the boys. He didn't like the fact that Mike was still carrying around the reminder that I invaded his game and had no intention of stopping. I told my boyfriend that I wouldn't ask to play anymore, and that one session made me hate D&D. It wouldn't be until several years later where I would be asked to play again with a new friend of mine. After some talk, my friend got me to play with him and some other friends, and now I love D&D. We still play to this day, and I have discovered my love of being DPS like barbarians, paladins, and my personal favorite, monk. I even DM myself. I'm no longer with my boyfriend. There were other red flags in that relationship I won't get into, but he was very emotionally abusive. But I do hear from Mike every now and then. He told me that he went on to take his rogue to another game, and in honor of me, he made his backstory that he was trying to revive his long-lost sorcerer friend. He also told me that our DM had cut contact with him after he tried to convince him to let me back in. He claimed that I had to have cheated, because there's no way a newbie can roll that good, even though all of our dice rolls were out in the open. And that I didn't belong anyway, that I should stick to baking because that's all I was good at. Lovely. Like, he agreed to have me play at the table. If he was so against me, he could have just said no and avoided all of this. Well, DM, if you ever find this, I am now with a group that appreciates my contributions. I am also the main note-taker of the group because I only invest myself in good stories. And yes, I still roll high, but I don't cheat. Roll20 makes sure of that with my nat 1 on a death save. TLDR, DM is so upset of a newbie girl joining his group who rolls really high and decides to instant kill her to get her to leave the table that she was invited to. P.S. The cookies were pumpkin, chocolate chip, and fucking delicious.